It is on time. Hold on.
Okay, Warren,
Want to take attendance first?
I see Bachhuber, Giebert, Shaw, Potter, Wilkinson, Haniro, and Julie Urban had messaged me earlier that she won't be able to attend, so we are all here. Quorum.
Okay, the first item of business then is a motion for approval of the minutes.
I'll move.
I'll second that.
All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So the minutes are approved. And one and only item is the private stormwater management system maintenance program that we've been talking about for a number of years. And I've asked Eric to put it on the agenda. This is an area that we've been concerned about. So I'm happy to see what the city is doing on it. So would you like to go through that, Eric, of what's happening?
Yeah, it looks, I think it's looking pretty good. You know, we kind of ramped it up this year a little bit. You know, I kind of put a list of shame on the second page here. You know, there's just not very many of them. Some of them are probably kind of communication problems that we haven't found the right person, or some of them are not, you know, prior violators. So maybe the person who was in charge of this thing has retired or left. There's two of these called Goff Development. They both have the same issue where there's a maintenance agreement that was turned over to a homeowners association that was then never created.
There is no homeowner association, you say?
Right. So there is no real entity. We've already, last year, we made contact with, I think there's 10 homeowners on Amherst Road. We asked them if they wanted to coordinate this inspection themselves or just pay the city to do it. I think we only got a couple of responses that, you know, just said you go ahead and do what you have to do, because, you know, it'd be awfully difficult without any kind of mechanism for 10 different lot owners to come together.
Does this go back to when, after all the facilities that we asked to be constructed since the stormwater management program was initiated? In other words, does it go back to day one or not?
It started it was probably a requirement, Warren, before 2004, you know, but then when phase 2 came on, and then kind of in the years following, DNR has ramped up what they expect out of us. You know, one of the first things was, well, you can't take credit for a private facility in your citywide plan unless you've got a recorded maintenance agreement.
Okay.
And I think the understanding was you can't take credit for a recorded maintenance agreement unless you've got a program to follow up and ensure these people are inspecting and maintaining and all that stuff. So that's where we're at now.
So it does go back to the very first ones we put in, required to.
The oldest ones we have are from 05, 06, I think.
Wow. So we probably did some before that that aren't included.
Maybe. And there are some more informal ones, I would say, too, that are, you know, we're kind of stuck as being non-enforceable. Warren, Lisa has her hand up.
Yes. Yes,
I was
Lisa.
gonna comment, sorry.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to ask, and let me lower my hand. I was going to ask whether, So for the wall of shame, or I don't like to call it that, but for the non-comply, the big non-compliers, I wonder if there's an opportunity for the alder people to reach out and say, hey, like for instance, 67, 50 Century, that's my district. I'd be happy if I had a contact email to reach out and say, hey, I'm just wondering if there's anything I can do to help bring you into compliance. Just let me know, let's talk. I recognize my role isn't to be like the constable of the district, but I wonder if there's something we can do to help facilitate bringing these folks or these entities into compliance.
Well, that example, Lisa, that's Dan Erdman, who's pretty well known, I guess, and I was actually planning on calling him myself. I think the understanding, and he may have an agreement with his tenant of that property that they are to maintain this. Not sure, but I
They
don't
just
think
did
he's,
some work out there in the parking lot and in that basin, that biofilter, call it what you want.
oh, really? I'm not aware of that.
It was in the last couple of months, I remember seeing some equipment out there. So anyway, I think calling Dan would be a good idea, and maybe he said, oh yeah, we're working, whatever,
Yeah.
see what he says.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Well-
not gonna try to steamroll anybody here.
Sure.
Yeah.
And my point, Eric, simply is that I recognize that you've got a lot on your plate. And, if there's a way that the elected council members can help, and maybe they wouldn't all want to do this, but I only have one. I only have one in the group. So I'm perfectly happy to reach out if that would lighten your load a little bit.
I can, well, I guess, like I said, that one's probably a bad example. We can, before we take the next step, I guess we can communicate with the relevant alder and see
Yeah.
if the alder would like to help.
I think it's fair to ask, especially since, we've been talking a lot about budget and staff and not wanting to burden the staff. And I think if you were to reach out to folks and just say, hey, who can help connect with these businesses to help them become compliant, not make it a punitive thing so much as how can we help?
Sure.
Walgreens has been out of compliance for years because I go to Walgreens and they've been growing trees and cattails in there for the last 20 years. So,
Oh, man.
I'll just
Well-
say, when I read this over, frankly, I was impressed with how few were on that list and how
Yeah, me too.
well overall compliance is. So I'm not surprised at all that, or I am surprised that there's, this few actually.
Well, you can take some of this with a grain of salt. I had sent out an example of an inspection report, and that was a good one.
Mhm.
They're not all that good, and there's a requirement for a biofilter, say that it's got to drain dry 24 hours after a rainstorm. So there's probably numerous inspections that did not
Right.
occur within 24 hours after the prior rainfall.
Right.
In
I
my
realize
perfect
how-
world, I'd like to have time to kind of do an audit, and double check a certain percentage of these every other year also. And that would be a great thing for like an engineer intern or something to do at some point. But as Lisa's bringing up, we don't have time for that.
Right.
Eric, let me clarify. They're supposed to do the survey 24 hours after a storm.
It's a requirement for a biofilter that it's dry in 24 hours. I don't think our maintenance agreements spell out your inspection must be done within 24
Right.
hours.
Okay. Infiltration basin's that way too, isn't it? Or 48 hours?
I think it's probably 72 for an
72,
infiltration
72.
basin.
Yeah, I think it's 3 days. I mean, and we all know, or first thing you gotta do is figure out, well, when does the storm end? You know,
Right.
it's not a black and white answer. It's these things are more art than science, I think. And I've been doing this my whole career, but
Can I quote you on that?
yeah, you can quote me on that.
We don't require an infiltration test when they do the inspection, right?
No,
That's one thing we could do, or that's too expensive.
well, that would double the cost, maybe. And yeah, it'd probably double the cost of one of these inspections, which might run somebody, you know, a simple site would still cost a lot owner $2,000 maybe to get an engineer out there.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. If they don't infiltrate, it's not working. And so right now we're doing a visual inspection,
Yeah.
but it doesn't
Right.
say if they silt up. We don't know.
Well, a complete aside comment here is that this week, Cromery School, in conjunction with Friends of Pheasant Branch, are conducting mini double ring infiltrometer tests in different places around Cromery and at Pheasant Branch. So we could send the middle schoolers out there and they could do them all.
Yeah,
Was Chuck Nunn out there, Jim?
I don't know for sure. I had discussions with the 8th grade teacher and came up with this, and unfortunately I couldn't go out there and help. So I bet it was fun to do, though. That'd be
that's
interesting.
impressive.
Yeah.
That would be a good thing to document for our MS4 I&I requirements.
You are correct, Richard. I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, if you could send me some information, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yes.
So right now they're required to do a test every 2 years.
Just an inspection, Warren.
Just,
Pardon, inspection, right? So what if we made it every 4 years and required to do an infiltration test?
Well,
Um,
we wouldn't be able to do that for existing agreements, but we could add it into our agreement template. And 2 years might be coming down from a higher authority too. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up.
I think it is.
But higher authority, DNR?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you're speaking to someone else.
oh,
there is no higher authority than DNR.
That's right.
man.
Well,
So
I
I
guess-
noticed that Greenway Center they're not in compliance? It's red on your spreadsheet. I don't know if that means non-compliance,
Oh,
they
hold
weren't-
on. Let me look.
but they weren't listed as non-compliance.
Well, this spreadsheet is a couple of months out of date from that memo. And it's not in any particular order.
It was up near the top
It's up near the top.
third.
I can't find it, Warren.
There you go. Down a little more, a little more.
Oh, there you go.
Up a little bit.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is red here. I think that Tom Weber, and I don't want to take credit for this because it's really Tom Weber who manages all of this stuff. I think Tom has had some conversations with Greenway Center. And yeah, the bigger problem with Greenway Center is I don't really think that design from 20 years ago or whenever that was is really doing all that much. So as these some of these sites are redeveloping individually and they're installing their own facilities. Like we have one for there's a tavern right by that little roundabout. They're redeveloping, and
Tanner's is going away.
Tanner's is going away. It's becoming Cooper's.
Yep.
And when Noodles developed, Noodles and Jersey Mike's, that little strip, they did their own. So it's getting better. And I think the current manager for these properties is pretty on the ball. So my recollection is that this one has made progress since this spreadsheet was last updated at end of June, I think.
There's a lot of facilities within
Yeah.
Greenway Center.
They are, but it was all permitted. Most of it, excuse me, was permitted as one facility or as one owner with a single maintenance plan. And it's just strips of grass swales, in between parking aisles.
Well, they got a big bioretention center basin too, if I underground, as I remember it.
I don't think so,
You don't think so, huh? Well,
unless you're talking about like maybe that there's a hotel kind of.
no, it would be over by the World Market in front of that.
Oh, World of Beer? Or
No.
where?
Isn't there, that shoe store, World Market? I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
In the parking lot. Okay.
I'll check that out, Warren, but I'm not,
Okay.
I don't think so.
And I remember when you did our tour years ago, that mobile station on University Avenue was growing cattails. Is that on there? It'd be kind of hard to find, I suppose. It's the Kelly Market,
At the west edge of town?
the Kelly Market on University Avenue up by,
University and Pheasant Branch there.
University of Pheasant.
what's right on Pheasant,
Oh, by,
No, I mean Pleasant View, excuse me, Pleasant View.
Yeah,
Pleasant View
Pleasant View,
Road and
yeah.
University.
I'll check that one out too.
Okay,
No, I think that was okay. And Warren, Lisa has her hand up again.
okay, Lisa.
Thanks, Warren. I think TF Chang's restaurant is listed as non-compliant on this page. Is that still there even? If it is, I missed it.
Right. Well, like I said, this is just the raw, unpolished data. It's not in a
Mhm.
presentable or perfect form.
So Eric, what's the process? Do you push notifications out to the yellow and red ones? I'm just wondering, one, what you do to try to encourage compliance, and two, how the city gets reimbursed for the work that you're putting into making sure businesses are.
But we're not getting reimbursed. We started trying to, corral this in 2016 is my understanding. Tom Weber sends out a reminder to everyone who has an agreement in April, I believe. And he tells them to have it in by the end of June. And then anyone who hasn't responded to him by the end of June gets another letter. And what we added this year was a third letter by certified mail for people. And I think we did that in September, beginning of September. And as long as they're responding and we're having a conversation, that's a lot better for us than someone who's just not responding. But it does, Tom is on state websites and stuff and trying to find business entities that are out of state in some cases. And so it does take a little time. And, what we're planning on doing here is hiring an engineering consultant to go out and do the inspections for some of these problem ones, then we would have to front that cost. But we have the authority to charge the property owner as a special charge, and that would eventually show up on their tax bill.
Okay. Do we have the authority right now? And if so, do we exercise the authority to charge that property for your time or Tom's time? The administrative costs that you put into notifying them and following through?
No. I mean,
Can
we would have the authority, I think, to include that as an eligible stormwater utility cost, but that has not been the practice.
Yeah, I would like to see it, we're providing a service, and I would like to see entities pay for the service we're providing. When we went to the referendum, my mantra was, we need to make sure there's no stone left unturned.
Right.
And this sounds like, you all are having to devote time to this, which is money. And let's talk, not here, but sometime let's talk about how can we make the city whole without creating a whole new administrative burden for you.
And Lisa, if I could jump in here, this is an example, a prime example of me. This is what all cities need to do to comply with their MS4 permit. So it's really a permit compliance activity that's going on here. And I'll get back to my mantra here. This is kind of the kind of stuff that frankly ought to be charged to a stormwater utility. There are cities that, staff people like Eric and Richard would have a line item for stormwater utility staff time. And that's covered by the utility fee then, because it's a legitimate cost of running their program. This is just one example, but they're doing this because frankly, they got to do it to comply with the DNR permit. And we want to have a properly functioning stormwater system. I shouldn't discount that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Strike the minutes on that one.
Yeah.
Well, overall, I'm impressed. They were doing a good job. So I was
Yeah.
worried about this for years. And so
I am too.
I think it's much better than I thought.
I think it looks pretty good overall. I'm sure we're doing much better than many municipalities.
Now, I still have some question in my minds about doing an infiltration test at these sites to find out whether they're really working, but
Well, we could add that, something like that, Warren. I think Madison has a requirement for if you have a wet pond, you've got to do a bathymetric survey of it every 5 or 10 years to make sure it's not full of sediment.
yeah. Yeah, well, a visual drive-by after within 72 hours would relieve that too, but I guess finding the right storm to drive by would be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, unless there's any other comments, that's it. No action required.
Nope.
Except an attaboy.
I'll give it to Tom.
Okay,
Last agenda item, Warren.
looking for items possibly for November meeting.
I have one to suggest. So flood mapping was something that the commission talked about a while ago. And it sounded to me like it was something that the commission would deem a priority for the city. So I advocated for retaining a $30,000 flood mapping project in 2023 in our capital improvement plan. It was slated to be cut, but I just recall the conversation where it seemed like the members felt strongly that this was something that should go forward. We should be able to help property owners, especially west of the downtown and in the business park, help them take action to prepare for future floods and make sure they're protected properly. So I requested and, succeeded in getting that put back into our capital improvement budget. But I wanted to, make sure the members were aware of that and find out, is this something that absolutely should take place in 2023? And
Without
I
a
know-
doubt, without a doubt, it should. And I don't know where we stand on that, Eric. I know we've been pushing that down the road a little bit, but where are we on that?
Well, Steve Gaffield should be back next month to talk about these scenarios. And that's kind of the first step. Remember, we talked about flood storage districts and the differences in modeling and, what can we do? And apparently we have a lot of freedom at this point, to kind of set boundaries on flood storage districts. So one of the things Steve is going to come back with is, what are the impacts if we eliminate the flood storage district in area A? And the one we talked about at a prior meeting was that little subdivision or strip mall south of Esser Pond where Five Guys Burgers is.
Yeah, oh, that one, yeah.
Did they close?
No, I'm sorry. I'm wrong.
Phew,
I'm thinking,
I got nervous.
And the differences of what, if we enact the maps as they are now, and that's in a flood storage district, then that development is both flood prone and can't lift itself out of the floodplain. That's the trade-off with these flood storage districts. So Lisa, that it's a priority of mine. Certainly, I'm bogged down in day-to-day stuff. But I think the consultant studied some scenarios before. They asked him to go look at some more, and he's going to report on that next month. And I think maybe we can determine a direction.
Great. I'm glad to hear that's already slated for our agenda. Thanks.
if there's anything else. If not, meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Yep, thanks.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Rich, are you still on?